I pulled into our apartment's parking lot just after 6:07 a.m., headlights cutting through the still dark haze of early Houston morning. The air was thick with leftover humidity from the night, and the edges of the world felt heavy, like it hadn't quite decided to wake up yet. Another graveyard shift behind me, and all I wanted was a hot shower, maybe 5 hours of sleep, and Laura's voice asking if I wanted her to start the coffee. Instead, my headlights landed on a black sedan parked 2 spots down from mine. Sleek, polished, expensive looking. Not from around here. I would have kept moving, probably wouldn't have even noticed, if the passenger door hadn't clicked open right then. She stepped out slowly. Laura, my wife. Hair tousled like she'd just come out of a wind tunnel or a stranger's bed. Makeup smeared just beneath her eyes. Not in a way that screamed rough night, but more like, forgot to wash it off. Her dark blue dress clung to her, wrinkled and slightly off her shoulder, like it had been put back on in a hurry. I recognized the dress. She wore it last night when she said she was heading to that networking dinner for her job. No coat, no purse. Just heels dangling lazily from her left hand and something else tucked under her arm. A scarf. A man's scarf. Gray. Wool. Expensive looking, like something out of a catalog. And then I saw the box. A sleek, square box of chocolates, wrapped in a matte black ribbon, tied perfectly, neatly, deliberately. It had a little card affixed to the top with silver ink. To Elle. Last night was unforgettable. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't race. I just froze. It was like my brain snapped a picture and filed it away before my emotions even caught up. She hadn't seen me yet. I was still sitting in the car, engine running, headlights off now, my badge and sidearm still clipped to my belt from the night shift. Just another guy in a car on a quiet street until she turned, and our eyes met. That's when she paused. A fraction of a second too long. Long enough to recognize that she'd been caught off guard, but not long enough to admit it. She forced a smile, one of those bright, wide ones she used at cocktail parties, or when someone asked her a question she didn't want to answer. She waved the box slightly, like it explained everything. I didn't wave back. I just watched her. She walked past my car like nothing was wrong, trying to stay casual, trying too hard. And I followed, one slow step behind her all the way up the stairs to our unit. I noticed her key fumbled a little in the lock, like her hand was trembling. The door opened. She stepped inside. I followed and shut it behind us. Still, I said nothing. She turned to face me, and that's when it began, the script. "Oh my God, what a night," she said, laughing nervously. Mia got totally trashed, like completely out of control. You know how she gets, right? It was such a mess. I kept my eyes on the scarf. I was ready to Uber home, she continued, her voice picking up speed. But her phone died, and she was crying about some guy from the office, and no one could get a signal in that parking garage. We were just stranded for God, I don't even know how long. I nodded slowly, not responding. She gestured vaguely toward the scarf. Grayson. Remember Grayson from the last company dinner? Tall. Glasses? Anyway, he offered to drive us. Total lifesaver. But the AC in his car was cranked way up, and I was freezing, so he gave me his scarf. It was sweet, right? I should give it back. I looked at her. Mia didn't drive? No, she was supposed to, Laura said quickly. But then she had those margaritas and, God, she's a mess sometimes. My eyes drifted to the box of chocolates still in her hand. She noticed and held it up like a prize. Oh, this, she said. They were handing them out at the restaurant. Valentine's promo, I think. Cute. Huh? I guess they personalized them with initials? Honestly, I didn't even look at the card. Probably just something silly. I took a step closer and held out my hand. She hesitated, then handed the box to me. To Elle. Last night was unforgettable. She blinked. Wow, I didn't even see that. I nodded again, silent. It's probably from the restaurant, she added, almost too fast. You know how fancy places are with their marketing stuff. They probably do this for everyone. For everyone? I said finally, my voice low. They personalize every box with initials and a handwritten message? She swallowed. Maybe not every box. I could see it happening in real time, her trying to rearrange the facts, trying to patch up holes before the whole thing caved in. But she was moving too fast, over-explaining, throwing in too much detail. It was the kind of clumsy lie that reveals itself more with every word. I was going to tell you all this when I got in, she said, placing the scarf down on the entryway table. But then I saw you and, I don't know. I didn't want you to think. I'm thinking a lot of things. I cut in. She went quiet. I stepped into the kitchen, set the box on the counter, and pulled off my badge. The weight of the last 12 hours of work settled in my spine like bricks. But this was heavier. It was the kind of weight that didn't sit in your bones. It lived behind your eyes. Why didn't you call? I asked after a beat. I thought I'd be back earlier. That's not what I asked. She exhaled slowly. I didn't want to wake you. You've been so tired lately. I stared at her. That's when she started to tear up. Not full crying, just enough mist in her eyes to signal vulnerability. I know how it looks, she whispered. But it's not what you're thinking. I swear to you, Jack. I wouldn't. Wouldn't what? She shook her head. Please don't make this a thing. I didn't answer, didn't accuse. I just stood there and looked at the woman I married. She'd been gone all night. No message. No call. Came back in the same dress, wearing another man's scarf, carrying a box of chocolates with a note that might as well have been signed with a lipstick kiss. And this was the best story she had. But the worst part? It wasn't the lie. It was how practiced it felt. Like this wasn't the first time she'd rehearsed something like this. And maybe not the first time she'd come home from something she couldn't explain. I didn't argue, didn't shout. I just grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and walked past her to the bedroom. I heard her whisper, Jack, please. But I didn't stop. I shut the door behind me. And as I stood there, boots still on, uniform clinging to my skin, the only thing I felt was silence. Cold and absolute. Not anger, not heartbreak, just something going very, very still. Something shutting off. I sat alone at the kitchen table for a long time that morning. Didn't bother changing out of my uniform. Didn't eat. Just stared at the box of chocolates she'd left on the counter. The ribbon was still tied neatly, mocking me in its perfection. I hadn't opened it. Didn't need to. The card said enough. To L. Last night was unforgettable. I read it again and again. At some point, the words stopped feeling like a note. They started feeling like a punchline. The joke was me, and the setup had been months in the making. Funny how you don't see the rot until the wood snaps under your weight. Looking back, it wasn't just the scarf. Or the chocolates. It wasn't even the way she lied with a straight face like it was muscle memory. No, it had started long before that. I just hadn't wanted to see it. But now, with the house quiet and the sun crawling reluctantly across the floor, the memories started showing up uninvited. One after the other. A reel I hadn't asked to play. Like how she used to leave her phone on the coffee table, face up, screen unlocked. It used to buzz all the time, group chats, work stuff, memes from her sister. I used to tease her about it. Now, she kept that thing glued to her. Like it was part of her body. She took it into the bathroom. Into the shower even. Once, I joked about it. Said something dumb like, "You getting texts from the president or something?" She smiled. That smirk she used to flash when she thought I was being insecure. "You jealous officer?" she said, biting her lip. "That's kinda hot." I laughed, played along, didn't think much of it. Now I think about it all the time. Then there was social media. She used to post us a lot. Photos from our cabin trips, our Sunday brunches, even candid *TS of me napping on the couch, tagged with captions like, "My favorite view." I didn't realize until it stopped. I checked one day. Our anniversary post from last year? Gone. Our trip to Galveston? Gone. Her Instagram still looked active. Gym selfies, latte art, some quote about self-love. But it was like I'd been scrubbed from the record. I asked her about it once. She said she was rebranding. "Everyone's doing it," she said, flipping through her phone like it was nothing. "Clean feed, minimalist vibes. It's not personal. It wasn't personal, but it felt targeted. Like she was preparing for a version of life where I didn't exist. Still, I let it slide. Let a lot of things slide. Like the morning boxing classes she picked up back in October. Out of nowhere. She said she needed to feel strong again. I thought it was great at first. Supportive husband, right? I even offered to buy her gloves. She declined. Said it was all provided there. That it was women only. That I didn't need to come with her. I remember how she'd leave the apartment at 6:30 a.m. Sharp, perfume lingering in the hallway. Full makeup. Hair done like she was heading to a photo shoot, not to get punched in the face. She came home sweaty, but not always in the right places. Once, I hugged her after she walked in, and she pulled back a little too fast. Her shirt smelled like men's cologne. Something expensive. Not mine. I asked. She blinked. Probably someone in the elevator, right? Because strangers in elevators leave designer cologne all over your clothes. Then there was the receipt. It was maybe 2 months ago. I was looking for my jacket in the front closet and found hers instead. Slipped my hand into the pocket. Don't even know why, and found a folded receipt. Some upscale riverfront restaurant. Table for 2. Dinner, dessert, 2 glasses of wine. The timestamp was from a Thursday night. She said she worked late. I remember squinting at the dessert. Tiramisu. She hates tiramisu. Swears it's too soggy. Calls it wet cake. That night, I didn't say anything. I tucked the receipt back where I found it, shut the closet, and went to make dinner. I think I made pasta. I asked how her shift went. She said, exhausting. You? I said, same. And we ate like nothing had happened. Because that's what I did. Over and over again. Each moment, each lie, each half-truth, was like a thread pulling loose from the seam. But I kept tying them back together. Convincing myself that relationships go through phases, that I was overthinking it, that this was just what marriage looked like after a few years. But it wasn't. It was erosion. And I let it happen. I let her explain everything away each time. Her coming home late, traffic, the phone flipped screen down, just a habit. The makeup wipes disappearing faster than usual. New skincare routine. A man's voice I once heard faintly through her Bluetooth when I got in her car. Podcast guest. And the worst part? She made me feel like I was crazy for even noticing. I'd raise an eyebrow, and she'd kiss me like it was a reflex. I'd ask a question, and she'd answer with a story that felt just believable enough. And when I didn't believe it, she'd laugh. God, Jack, she'd say, shaking her head. You really need to stop watching those crime shows. And I'd laugh too, because I wanted to believe her, because the alternative meant facing something I wasn't ready for. I got up from the table. My back ached. My eyes burned from being awake too long. But more than anything, I felt hollow. Like all the oxygen had been ked out of the apartment. The kind of silence you don't notice until it's the only thing left. In the living room, the curtains were still drawn halfway. Light leaked in through the slats, catching the edge of the coffee table, where a folded blanket sat untouched, where her favorite mug still held a half-inch of tea from yesterday. It all looked the same, but it wasn't. I picked up my phone, thought about texting her, asking again, not accusing, just trying. But what would she say? Another story, another carefully polished excuse. I put the phone down. I didn't need more words. I needed to listen to the ones I'd already heard and ignored. All of them were there, buried under months of denial. I saw them now, clear as day. A man's scarf wasn't the beginning. It was just the moment I stopped pretending. A week passed. 7 days of the same soft, polished lies, served with a smile over morning coffee. 7 days of me pretending I didn't already know what I knew. I went to work. I came home. She kissed me hello like nothing had shifted. Like I hadn't come home that morning and seen her climbing out of someone else's car with someone else's scarf around her shoulders. And I let her. That's the part one can't stop replaying now. Not the lie itself, but how easy it was for her to keep lying. And how easy it was for me to let her. It's not like I didn't have a gut feeling. The scarf, the chocolates, they weren't accidents. They were carelessness wrapped in confidence. The confidence that I'd believe her. And the truth? I might have kept pretending, too, if not for the tablet. It was a Saturday morning. Laura had left for one of her so-called boxing classes. Hair curled, lips glossed, gym bag in hand like she was headed to brunch with a secret. She'd forgotten her tablet on the kitchen island. Normally, she was meticulous about her devices. Phone always on her, laptop password protected, tablet hidden in drawers like it held nuclear codes. But that morning, maybe she was in a rush. Maybe she was getting lazy. I stared at the screen for a long minute. Didn't touch it at first. Just stared. Then I opened it. No passcode. The home screen lit up. A calendar widget dead center. Color-coded blocks lined up like little confessions. Most were blank. Generic. Budget check-in. Q2 strategy meeting. Mia's birthday. But there, tucked under Saturday night, was something that stopped me cold. Dinner? 8 p.m. Riverfront Bistro. Two things hit me immediately. 1. It was the same restaurant from the receipt I'd found in her jacket weeks ago. And 2. It was supposed to be a retirement theme party tonight. That's what she'd told me. Some kind of office gag, Hawaiian shirts and all. She even joked about wearing a fake mustache. But this wasn't a group dinner. This wasn't kitschy or casual. It was a reservation. For 2. I opened the event. Notes were blank. No names listed. Just the time, the place. Riverfront Bistro. Same place she'd gone before. Same dessert she supposedly didn't like. Same location I'd been storing in the back of my mind, waiting for a reason to connect the dots. This was the last one. The dot that finished the shape. I didn't get angry. Didn't even curse. I just stood there, staring at the screen, and something inside me clicked into place. A part of me that had been pacing in a cage for weeks finally sat down. Calm. Focused. I went upstairs, changed into a clean shirt, and booked a reservation at the same restaurant. Table for 1. Name, Mrs. Grayson Turner. Her lover's wife. A name I'd found with 20 minutes of social media searching and one Google result that included a yoga studio staff bio. I wasn't proud of how easy it was. I didn't tell Laura I knew. I didn't ask where the party was. I just told her to have fun and that I might turn in early. She smiled, kissed my cheek. "Love you," she said, and she left. The restaurant was dimly lit, soft music playing, candles flickering at every table like the night was trying too hard to be romantic. I arrived 10 minutes early. My table was by the window, just slightly off-center, close enough to see theirs, far enough not to be noticed unless she was looking for me. I wore a jacket she wouldn't recognize, sat facing the door. At 8:04 they walked in. Laura, in the same navy blue dress, and Grayson. I'd only seen him once before, briefly at a company event. Now I saw him clearly, tall, smooth, every part of him looking like someone who enjoyed being noticed. His hand was on the small of her back, guiding her like she belonged to him. She was smiling, the real kind, not the forced one she gave me when she said, "Just a coworker." Not the polite one she used at dinner parties. This one reached her eyes. They sat. Waiter brought them wine. Red. She hated red wine. Unless he liked red wine. They clinked glasses. He leaned in and said something that made her laugh. Not politely, not lightly, but that kind of laugh that only shows up when someone knows exactly where to touch. I didn't flinch. I just watched. They ordered. Talked. She reached across the table and touched his hand. Quick. Like lightning. But I saw it. She looked around. Cautious. But not enough. Not enough to notice me. I waited until their entrees arrived. Then I flagged my waiter. "I'd like to send a bottle of wine to that table," I said, pointing subtly. "With this note." I handed him a folded napkin. He raised an eyebrow. "You sure? Positive?" The note read, "To L. Hope tonight's as unforgettable as last time." No name. No signature. Just enough. I watched as the waiter delivered it. Watched Laura laugh politely at first, assuming it was a restaurant error. Then watched her face shift when she opened the note. She froze. Then she turned and saw me. We locked eyes. And for the first time I saw her without the mask. No script. No defense. Just caught. I didn't make a scene. Didn't stand up. Didn't shout. I simply placed my napkin on the table, stood, and walked out. Didn't look back. Not once. Back home, I sat at the kitchen table, tablet in front of me, the calendar still open. I created a new folder on my desktop, Laura, 2026. Then I started adding to it. *TS of messages I'd saved. Photos of receipts. The email confirmation for the riverfront reservation. Voice memos of conversations where she contradicted herself. Piece by piece I built it. Not for revenge. Not even for court. For me. Because for the first time I was done pretending. Done making her lies easier to tell. Done protecting the version of her I wanted to believe in. The silence in the house wasn't loud anymore. It was honest. And that felt like the first solid thing I'd stood on in months. The next morning came like any other. Light crept in through the blinds, soft and harmless. Outside, I could hear the slow hum of a garbage truck. Somewhere in the building, a dog barked once, then went quiet. Laura was already in the kitchen when I got up. She wore her robe, hair pulled into a loose bun, like it was just another Tuesday. She looked up when I walked in, face unreadable, guarded. We hadn't spoken the night before. She got in late. I was asleep on the couch. I didn't look at her. Just walked past and poured myself a cup of coffee. The silence between us so heavy it made the floor feel uneven. I waited, and she broke first. "So," she said, her voice low, casual in that forced way people use when they're trying too hard to sound natural. "Last night was weird." I took a sip, kept my eyes on the window. "You didn't mention you'd be out." Still nothing from me. "I saw you at the restaurant." Another sip. Laura's voice shifted then, lost its mask. "Jack, say something." I turned. On the table behind me sat a cardboard box. Plain. Worn. I'd pulled it down from the hallway closet that morning. It used to hold Christmas lights. Now it held something else. I pushed it toward her. She didn't touch it. "What is this?" she asked, though I could tell she already knew. Next to the box sat my laptop. I tapped the spacebar. The screen lit up. A folder labeled Laura, January to April. Inside, *TS. Calendar events. Email confirmations. Restaurant receipts. Metadata from photos she didn't know I had. Everything I'd gathered since the scarf. And everything before that I'd only half admitted to myself. She stared at it. Clicked a few files. A picture of the restaurant receipt. An email thread titled, "Dinner tonight. Keep it low-key winking face." A time-stamped calendar entry, "G. Meet at Riverfront." And then a file labeled simply "The Note." It was a photo of the napkin I'd sent her, taken from the table. Her eyes stopped on that one. "This is why you followed me?" she asked, barely louder than a whisper. "No," I said quietly. "I followed you because I already knew." She looked up at me then, really looked. I wondered if she finally saw it, what months of quiet suspicion had done to me. I wondered if she could see the version of herself I'd been holding on to, now ash in the back of my throat. "You went through my tablet." "I did." "You saved all this?" "I did." There was a long silence. She closed the laptop and pulled the box closer. Lifted the lid. Inside were memories. Old photos. Cards. Notes she'd written me over the years. A small, heart-shaped rock she once found on a beach trip and gave me, saying it was a sign. All packed neatly like a goodbye. Laura's hands trembled as she picked up a photo of us from Charleston. Our first trip together. I remember how giddy she was posing on the bridge, pulling me close and laughing into my shoulder as the timer clicked. Now she stared at it like it was a stranger's memory. "I kept this," I said, "because I thought it meant something. I thought we meant something." "I never stopped meaning it," she murmured. I didn't respond. "Jack, you have to believe me. It wasn't serious. It was God. I don't even know what it was. A mistake." "Mistakes don't repeat themselves," I said calm. "Not like this. Not across months." Her mouth opened, then shut. For a moment, I saw her flinch, like the truth finally stung more than the silence. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. "It didn't just go," I replied. "You took it there." She dropped her gaze, and her voice hardened, just slightly. "You had no right to dig through my private things." There it was, the pivot. Blame as defense. I nodded. "You're right. I didn't. But I also didn't imagine the scarf. Or the late nights. Or the text you got from Grayson that lit up your screen in the middle of dinner last month." Her eyes snapped up. "You saw that. I see a lot more than you think." I just stopped saying it. She looked down again, face tight. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said. "You did." Silence. Then, for the first time since she walked in that morning, her face cracked. Not dramatically. No sobbing. No theatrics. Just her mouth twitching as she tried to hold something in. Guilt, maybe, or fear, or shame. She looked at the box again. "All this?" she whispered, brushing a finger across the photos. "Feels like someone else's life." "It was," I said. "Ours." She reached out as if to touch my hand, but stopped herself. "What do you want from me, Jack? An apology? A confession?" "I don't want anything from you," I said, and I meant it, because the part of me that used to ache for answers, that used to cry out silently for her to look me in the eyes and tell the truth, that part had gone quiet. It didn't want her tears anymore. It didn't want her justifications. It just wanted her to take the box and leave. "I'm not throwing you out," I said, "but I am asking you to take responsibility. You want to fight for this marriage? You should have started months ago. So what now? That's up to you." She nodded, slowly, then stood. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just picked up the box, pressed it to her chest like it weighed more than it should, and walked toward the door. Halfway there, she paused. "Jack." I looked up. "I really did love you," she said. "I know," I replied. "That's the part that hurts the most." She didn't say goodbye, just opened the door and stepped into the hallway, leaving it wide open behind her. I didn't move to close it, didn't chase, didn't check the hallway light twice like I usually did. Just sat back down at the table next to the laptop, closed the folder, and let the silence settle in like it belonged there. The apartment was quiet after she left. Not the tense kind of silence we'd lived in for weeks, filled with shallow breathing and unspoken doubts. This was different. Still, cold, honest. I didn't move for a while, just sat there in the same chair, staring at the front door left slightly ajar. The morning light had crept in sideways, casting long shadows across the floor. Her coffee cup was still on the counter, lipstick faintly smudged along the rim. She hadn't finished it. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she didn't care. Eventually, I stood up. The chair scraped gently against the floor, a sound so sharp it made me flinch. I walked over and shut the door, the click of the lock louder than it should have been. Then I exhaled. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, it didn't feel like I was holding my breath. I didn't cry, didn't yell. Instead, I started sorting. Not in a frantic, burn everything kind of way. Just methodically, room by room. A quiet inventory of what was left and what I no longer needed. I started in the hallway closet. It was packed with old jackets, tangled umbrellas, bags we'd both meant to donate but never got around to. On the top shelf sat a box I didn't recognize. A shoebox taped shut, no label. It wasn't mine. I pulled it down, set it on the floor, and sat cross-legged beside it. Something told me not to open it, but I did. Inside were letters, dozens of them. Some folded, some in envelopes, all addressed to her, handwritten. Different handwriting styles, different return addresses. No postmarks. These weren't mailed. These were given. I picked one at random. Started with her name. Laura. I know it was wrong, but I can't stop thinking about that night. You made me feel like I existed again. I've never looked at anyone the way I looked at you in that elevator. If this is all we ever get, I just want you to know I'll never forget it. I froze. My hands tightened around the paper. I read it again, hoping I misunderstood. But the words didn't change. I reached for another. Laura, even if you never answer this, thank you. For everything. For making me feel wanted, even if just for a few hours. I know you said we have to pretend it never happened, but I had to write it down somewhere. I don't regret it. Not 1 second. Jay. I kept reading. Letter after letter. All of them from men. Some were sweet. Others desperate. A few almost poetic. But all of them were saying the same thing. Thank you. I'll never forget. Even if it stays between us. Some were dated. Some weren't. But I could piece together the timeline. One was from when we were engaged. Another? While we were planning our honeymoon. One even referenced our apartment. Called it our little hideaway. I felt like I'd been punched without warning. No time to brace. No time to breathe. The scarf hadn't been the beginning. Grayson wasn't the beginning. He was just the latest chapter in a book I didn't know she was writing. I looked at the box differently now. She hadn't kept these letters out of guilt. She'd kept them like trophies. Proof. Reminders. Maybe even something she reread on quiet days. These weren't slips. This was a pattern. A thread running through every year we'd been together, and probably before that too. And I'd missed it. All of it. Or maybe I just refused to see it. I didn't touch anything else that day. I just sat on the floor, surrounded by the ghosts of people I didn't know, in the home I thought we'd built together. The box stayed open beside me, like a wound. Every time I looked at it, I felt that strange, hollow pain in my chest. The kind that doesn't come from heartbreak, but from humiliation. How many times had I been in the room when she was texting someone else? How many nights had she come home to me after being with them? How many fake smiles had I kissed? And how many people had known? That thought haunted me the most. Not just that she cheated, but that maybe other people knew. Friends, co-workers, neighbors, smirking behind polite greetings, nodding at barbecues, raising glasses at dinner parties while knowing more about my marriage than I did. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Every memory I had with her started to feel contaminated. The beach trips, the birthdays, even our wedding day. Did she look at me the way she looked at them? Had she ever really looked at me at all? I got up sometime around 3 in the morning, poured a glass of water, stared at her empty mug still sitting by the sink. I thought about smashing it. Instead, I washed it, dried it, placed it gently in a cardboard box marked, "Donate." I don't know why. Maybe it felt like reclaiming something. A small act of control. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to chase closure from her anymore. No long texts. No final conversation. No letter asking, why? I already had the answer. She was never just one thing. Never just one mistake. She was a pattern. And I had to break it. I spent the day removing traces of her. I boxed up her clothes, her books, her makeup drawer. I took down the framed photos on the wall. Us at the lake. Us at her cousin's wedding. Us in that dumb photo booth where the flash never worked. Kept one. Not out of nostalgia, but to remind myself. To remind me what trust looked like before it shattered. Later that afternoon, I went back to the box of letters. I didn't burn them. I scanned them. Each one. Put them in the folder with the rest of the evidence. Not because I planned to use them, but because I needed to make peace with the fact that the version of her I loved was already gone. And maybe had never really existed. That night, I didn't drink. Didn't try to distract myself with TV or music. I just sat. No lights. No noise. Just me and the silence. It was heavy, but it was honest. And I could finally breathe inside it. I didn't chase her. Didn't text. I packed a bag. Drove to the lakeside cabin we used to visit before things got messy. No TV, no signal. Just trees, water, and a worn-out notebook. I didn't write letters to her. I wrote to myself. Not about blame or heartbreak, but about clarity. About the silence I was learning to trust. One afternoon, I stood by the dock and dropped her old keychain. Our initials carved into the metal, into the water. It sank slowly, leaving barely a ripple. That night, for the first time in months, I slept straight through. No dreams. No questions. Just quiet. A month later, a plain envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a photo us on the Charleston Bridge. On the back, in her handwriting, I really did feel it back then. I stared at it for a long time. Then I slipped it into the folder with the rest. That evening, I deleted her number, cleared her drawer, and stopped checking the hallway light twice. I sat by the window with coffee, and this time I wasn't waiting for a knock. I wasn't waiting for anything, just peace. And finally I had it.